The powerful forces that rule the otherworldly realm are monstrous demons and angelic figures known as divine spirits. For a long time, demons and divine spirits fought each other in an epic war that unfortunately ended in the demons' victory. A decade ago, demons invaded the human world with their overwhelming power, and humanity stood no chance against the army that emerged from the gates. It was during these times that the divine spirits appeared before select humans, granting them sacred stones. Those chosen to wield this power became known as hunters, gaining the ability to fight off the demons. In the present, in a forest 10 kilometers outside of Tokyo, a group of hunters stands before a magic gate leading to an E-ranked dungeon. The party about to enter is ready for the danger inside. A short distance away from the main team is the supply carrier, a black-haired young man with a heavy backpack named June. He assures the others that he has no problem carrying the equipment for his teammates. The others enter the gate, telling June to let them handle the combat since he is only a wannabe hunter. June hates being called a wannabe, but has grown used to it. He explains that a sacred stone first appears attached to a person's hand, and only afterward does a divine spirit appear to form a pact with the stone's holder. 2 years ago, a bright light enveloped June in his house. He was thrilled to see a sacred stone appear on his hand, as it meant he would finally become a hunter. He clenched his fist with determination, vowing that the tragedy that befell his family would never happen again. He remembered the day the demons invaded Earth when he returned home to find his parents had been killed. The sacred stone became his ray of hope. One day June was in a park, practicing his swordsmanship. He felt satisfied after completing 1,000 swings and decided to go for a 20-kilometer run. As he ran, passers-by recognized him as the wannabe hunter. Their words stung. They gossiped about how even after 2 years a divine spirit had never appeared to him, meaning he was wasting the sacred stone's power. Flashing forward to a snowy day, June was slammed against a wall by one of his party members. The man complained that June was nothing but dead weight to their team. June insisted that he could fight, having trained relentlessly with his weapon. However, the man retorted that without a divine spirit, he was useless to them. The words hurt, but June couldn't talk back. As they left, his teammate told him to stop trying to be a hunter like them. June was left alone in the alley, feeling hopeless. He questioned why a divine spirit never appeared for him, making him an outcast among both hunters and ordinary people. Back in the present, June's party is fighting demons inside the dungeon. The leader, Kaito, uses the power of flames granted by his divine spirit flame. Aika uses arrows made of ice, an ability given to her by her spirit Zero. Ren wields a lightning sword, a gift from his spirit Full. With their teamwork, they easily defeat the demons. Kaito sees a demon approaching June from behind and shouts a warning, but it's already charging. June quickly places a hand on the ground, using it to pivot and successfully dodge the demon's strike. He pulls out his sword, telling himself he can take it down, and charges toward the creature. He strikes, hitting the monster's forehead, but it takes no damage. The demon only becomes angrier as it tries to dislodge the weapon from its head. June realizes that only an attack empowered by a divine spirit can harm it. The demon tries to strike again, but before it can, Kaito incinerates it with his fire. With the demon defeated, Kaito asks June if he is okay. June, collecting his bearings, apologizes and thanks him. The leader approaches, comforting June by telling him his evasive maneuvers were impressive. Unused to such praise, June explains that he has been training, so he'll be ready when a divine spirit finally makes a pact with him. Kaito says he hopes that day comes soon. Comforted by his leader's words, June gets back up to continue the journey, completely unaware of the subtle, mischievous smiles his teammates are exchanging. After a while, the team reaches the deepest part of the dungeon, where the gate to the boss room lies. Kaito touches the gate to inspect it, reminding June that demons have many varieties and unique routines. June asks if the plan is to exploit the boss's routine to defeat it. Kaito raises a hand and confirms he is correct. Suddenly, Ren grabs June from behind while Aika points an ice arrow at him. June stares in disbelief at his teammate's betrayal as Kaito opens the gate. Kaito explains that some demons fall asleep after eating, and with that they push June inside, laughing and calling him food. As the gate closes, June pleads with them to stop. Kaito's final words are, "This is what you get for being unable to make a pact with a divine spirit." June has no choice but to watch the gate close. He bangs on it, begging his teammates to open it, blaming himself for not predicting their betrayal. He then senses a presence behind him. Turning around, he sees the giant beast known as Behemoth. Before the monstrous creature, he looks as small as an ant. Tuyệt vời. Đây là phần tiếp theo của câu chuyện được viết lại cho chính xác và hấp dẫn hơn. He shivers at the sight of the giant behemoth. The monster swipes its massive claws at him, and he barely dodges. Meanwhile, his former party plays cards outside the gate waiting. Inside, the monster boss smashes a rocky chunk of its lair as it tries to reach June. Behemoth stalks its prey, watching the young man run for his life. June clings to the hope that he can survive, telling himself the beast hasn't fully awakened yet. This is the window he needs to escape. June spots a glimmer of light in the distance and prepares to run for it. But the behemoth lets out a sudden roar with the force of an earthquake, and rocks tumble from the cave roof, blocking his only exit. He stares at the blockage in despair. Right behind him, the monster is already charging, about to trample him. Despite this, June tells himself he will survive. As Behemoth's teeth near his body, he thinks of all the things he still needs to do. He remembers the death of his parents, mourning that he never avenged them. "There's no way I'll die here," he shouts. Just then, the sacred stone in his hand begins to glow. Dark energy erupts from it, enveloping his body. He doesn't understand what's happening, but the energy coalesces into a black force field around him, protecting him from the behemoth's charge. The monster skids to a halt, shocked. Within the field, June finds himself in a dark void. He looks at his sacred stone and sees it glowing with a sinister aura. Suddenly, black feathers drift down, landing on his hand. His eyes widen as he looks up to see a woman with black angelic wings descending before him. June is speechless, unsure how to react. The woman reaches out to him, asking to form a pact. The force field remains active as Behemoth waits for it to disappear. Inside the void, the winged woman again offers the pact to June. Confused, he hesitates. "Hurry up," she urges. "This void I've formed won't last long." She asks again, will he form a pact with her, or will he refuse? It dawns on June this must be his divine spirit. Knowing this, he wants nothing more than to accept. He holds out his hand and agrees. Their hands connect, and she declares their pact binding. The woman then dissolves into dark energy and is absorbed into the sacred stone on his hand. June feels an immense power surging through him. The force field drops. He faces Behemoth, sword in hand, and announces, "Our teamwork begins now." The monster roars again, and June notes that the pressure feels even stronger than before. As the creature dashes toward him, he readies himself to jump. "I'm not the person I was a moment ago," he declares, managing to dodge the creature's destructive claws. He lands a short distance away, amazed at his own newfound agility. He tightens his grip on his sword, takes a battle stance, and declares, "Now it's my turn to attack." Then he has an epiphany. He remembers Ren using his spirit's lightning ability. To defeat the boss demon, he needs the power of his own spirit. He panics as the behemoth lunges at him again, and he still doesn't know how to activate his power. He scrambles away from the behemoth's strikes, calling out his spirit's name and asking what her power is. The woman's voice echoes in his head, casually mentioning that she forgot to tell him about his power. "Get it together!" he mentally shouts. She nonchalantly replies that he never asked, frustrating the desperate young man even more. The demon's strike smashes into the ground where he just stood, and June leaps far away. He asks his spirit if the shadow-like aura from earlier was her power. She confirms that he is correct. June concentrates, gathering the dark energy. "You catch on quickly," she praises. She calls her power Rebellion Shadow, explaining that it is the ability to manipulate shadows. June stares at his hands, telling himself to focus. He closes his eyes, and the shadow in his palm slowly forms into something. Before his very eyes, it transforms into a sword made of pure shadow. Shadow weapon. The spirit calls it, explaining that it is the ability to turn shadow into any weapon. A smirk spreads across the young man's face. He believes this new weapon is more than enough even against Behemoth. "Now I can fight!" June shouts, taunting the beast. "I won't leave you any more openings!" Behemoth whips its massive tail, nearly hitting him. June readies a slashing stance and swings his new blade, managing to sever a part of the monster's tail. The sliced-off piece is so large that the cave shakes when it hits the ground. The demon becomes enraged, its eyes glowing bright red. June readies another stance. "I'm the hunter now," he declares, dashing towards the monster with lightning speed. The shadow blade nears Behemoth's face, but the monster dodges at the last second. June realizes it has figured out his movements. Undeterred, he presses forward, jumping high to slice the demon on his way down. But Behemoth evades, again stepping backward. As June slashes, his blade suddenly extends, becoming so long that it severs both of Behemoth's front legs. The beast howls in pain and collapses. June realizes his shadow can change shape freely. He looks at the helpless beast, struggling to get up. He leaps high above it, his sword poised to drop. As he prepares the final blow, memories flash through his mind, the voices of everyone who doubted him. He's wasting that sacred stone. The memory of people mocking his sword training. Useless. The whispers he heard while jogging. All that training for nothing. It was never pointless, he declares. In the present, June is about to drop on Behemoth, shaping his shadow sword into a giant weapon. He tells himself that all this time he was sharpening his fangs, and now is the moment to unleash them. The blade penetrates the beast, and the slice is so powerful that it cuts Behemoth clean in two. June's blade slowly disappears. The sudden silence is deafening, and the shadow aura around him completely dissipates. His hands are trembling, but a huge grin spreads across his face as he clenches his fists. He praises himself for finally defeating a demon. After the excitement wears off, he collapses to the ground to rest. He looks at the stone on his hand and asks to speak with his spirit. "Give me a moment," a woman's voice replies. A shadowy aura seeps from the stone and transforms into the woman with black wings. June thanks her for saving him. "You were the one who did all the hard work," she replies. He bows deeply. "I am so grateful you made a pact with me." The girl just looks at him. "Your power of shadow is amazing," June continues. "You must be a high-ranking divine spirit." The girl looks away. "I'm not," she says quietly. "I am no divine spirit. I am a demon." June is shocked into silence. Demons had destroyed countless divine spirits and pushed humanity to the brink of ruin. That was why humans and divine spirits formed pacts, becoming hunters to fight them. He confronts the woman about her claim. She looks uncomfortable, but before she can explain further, their talk is interrupted as the dungeon gate creaks open. The party that left June for dead enters and is stunned to see him alive. June's face instantly hardens with anger at their presence. The three hunters are confused about what has happened. Kaito looks past June to the winged woman and realizes the unbelievable the wannabe has formed a pact. The three of them don't know what to do. Kaito reminds Aika and Ren that they will be in serious trouble if June reports that they trapped him in the boss's domain. Knowing they must silence him, they simultaneously activate their divine powers. June knows he is in trouble. He turns to the mysterious woman and asks, "What's your name?" She is baffled that he would ask now of all times. With some hesitation, she says, "My name is Reno." June rematerializes his shadow sword. "Reno," he says, "lend me your power again." The woman is shocked that he still wants her help. Meanwhile, the three hunters, pointing their dangerous powers at him, tell themselves they can take June since he has only just awakened. Suddenly, Kaito's spirit flame cries out, "Stop!" "What's wrong?" Kaito asks. The fire spirit can tell just by looking at the mysterious woman that she is far more powerful than they can comprehend. The spirits of the other two also appear, warning their human companions of the immense power their enemy possesses. "We do not know who she is," Flame tells Kaito, "but I recognize the strength of a top-class divine spirit in her." The trio all gasp at the news. June looks at Reno, wondering if it's true. He knows that divine spirits are ranked in categories, and only a select few had ever reached the legendary top class. "Who are you really?" he asks. "We don't have time for explanations," Reno reminds him, gesturing to their enemies. Kaito moves forward, his firepower still activated. "I refuse to believe a weakling like him is stronger than me," he roars. Aika and Ren do not share his confidence and hesitate to attack. Calling his companions cowards, Kaito dashes towards June. He is inches away from landing a flaming fist. "I'll show you what true power looks like." Despite the declaration, June doesn't even bat an eye. He dodges the punch with little effort. Undeterred, Kaito follows up with more punches only for June to dodge each one. With his hand still near June's face, Kaito activates a spark of flame, instantly expanding it to engulf him. There is a sudden slash of a blade. To their disbelief, June has canceled out the flame with his sword. He mocks Kaito sarcastically, asking, "Are you holding back?" The taunt enrages the prideful hunter. "Don't get cocky," Kaito yells. "You're just a weakling who got lucky enough to form a pact with a strong spirit." June is insulted. "I formed a pact because, unlike you, I never gave up," he shouts. "I would never call my journey luck." Kaito grows even angrier. The fire surrounding him intensifies as he declares he will finish June off. He tells his companions to join the fight, or else June will report them. Feeling they have no choice, Aika and Ren also power up. Kaito concentrates a massive fireball in his palm. All three are gathering energy for their simultaneous finishing moves. Their energy attacks all charge towards June in unison, converging on him. The devastating blasts are mere inches from his body. The attacks collide in a blinding explosion, enveloping June in a whirlwind of destruction. Kaido, Aika, and Ren are smiling, laughing at the sight, but as the smoke slowly clears, a silhouette stands within the swirling dust. June is revealed to be alive and completely unharmed. Kaido's laughter dies in his throat. He and the others look on in absolute shock. "I cut through all of your attacks," June says, his voice dangerously calm. He taunts them. "The boss's attacks were faster than yours." He takes a step forward and then another. With each step, his presence feels more overwhelming and his former teammates shrink back. Now, Kaido is genuinely scared. Still, he desperately ignites another flame in his palm, throwing a succession of fireballs while shouting, "You're just a weak, pathetic wannabe hunter." June readies himself. He doesn't dodge. Instead, he moves forward effortlessly, carving a path through the barrage of flames, his shadow sword, slicing each one apart. In moments, he is standing before Kaito, their eyes locked. What are you?" Kaito whispers, trembling. June allows his shadow weapon to disappear. Instead, he clenches his fist and punches Kaito squarely in the stomach. The impact sends the man flying. As Kaito's body lands in a heap near the terrified Aika and Ren, June answers, "I'm a hunter." Kaito is shivering out cold. June turns his threatening eyes to the other two. "Take your leader and go," he commands. "And don't speak a word of this to anyone." Aika and Ren panic, scrambling to pick up Kaito before carrying their leader and fleeing in a hurry. June's sacred stone glows and Reno emerges. She praises him. "You were lenient with them." He thanks the Dark Angel for fighting alongside him. Reno smiles at him warmly. Eager to continue their conversation, June asks, "How can you be a demon and not a divine spirit?" Reno grips her fist, reluctant to answer. The woman slowly begins to speak. "I was once a divine spirit of the angel race," she explains. "However, because of a certain incident, I was turned into a demon." June absorbs this new information. He knew that angels were a high-ranking race among divine spirits, but he had never heard of one becoming a demon. "I was able to make a pact with you because I was formerly a divine spirit," she adds, "though I don't know why my sacred stone was given to you." Things are now clearer to June. Reno continues, her voice heavy with shame. "I can't hide that I am a demon. So, if you wish to revoke our pact, it would be all right." She holds her shoulder and the hunter notices she is trembling slightly. June smiles reassuringly, and then gets down on one knee, looking up at her. "My name is June. I'm 18 years old." Reno is perplexed by the sudden introduction. June sees not a demon, but a good person who saved his life. He has no intention of canceling their pact. "I'll be counting on you from now on, Reno," he says with conviction. Reno is touched. She doesn't know what to say at first, but then a genuine smile graces her lips. "I am fine with this arrangement too," she replies. Pleased, June gets back on his feet and the two of them head for the exit together. Elsewhere, two demons observe June and Reno through a magical projection. One is a two-horned demon with a mischievous expression. "The fallen angel betrayed us just as I predicted," he states. The other demon, wearing sophisticated clothing and engrossed in a book, seems uninterested. "I'm busy," he says flatly. "Whether she betrays us or not has no bearing on our plans." The first demon flashes an evil smile. "At least she could provide us with some entertainment." Back in the city among rows of apartment buildings, June leads his new companion to his home apartment 303. The place is very bare with just a single bed, a table, and some unopened boxes in the corner. "Make yourself comfortable," he says pleasantly. The angel, however, is a bit stunned as she takes in his shabby dwelling. "Is this really a place where a human lives?" she wonders aloud. "It's not much different from the caves in the demon world." June sees her point. "Is there anything you would like?" he asks. "Anything at all." She thinks for a moment and says wistfully, "I want beautiful scenery." June understands. "We could try adding some flowers. They might look nice." The angel likes the idea, and June, pleased to hear this, promises they will buy flowers every time they clear a dungeon. But for now, he is exhausted and needs to sleep. Reno inspects his tiny bed and lies down on it. "It's a bit cramped for two people," she comments. June is stunned to hear she plans on sleeping with him. "In heaven, this was normal," she states innocently. He then asks if divine spirits can even sleep outside their sacred stones. She figures she probably can't, so he suggests she return inside. She does, wishing him a good night. He looks at the purple gem on his hand for a moment before turning off the light. Lying in bed, he wonders what he will do next. He'll get in trouble if people find out he made a pact with a demon, which means he'll have to take on dungeons by himself. The only ones he can clear solo are F rank, so that's where he'll start. The next morning he heads to the Japan Hunter Association headquarters. He asks Reno if she is okay having covered his gem with a black glove. She agrees with his decision. A purple sacred stone would stand out too much. He heads to the reception desk and applies to take on an F-rank dungeon. Suddenly, loud screams and gasps pierce the air. Everyone's attention turns to a charismatic figure who has just entered the building. The crowd erupts in murmurs. It's rare for him to make an appearance, and they can't help but comment on how handsome he is. It's the S-rank hunter Yugo. He holds a bottle of alcohol, casually taking a swig, without a care for the crowd snapping photos and vying for his attention. Used to this, Yugo notes that not much has changed. Then his eyes scan the room and lock onto June in the background, widening in surprise. The F-rank hunter recognizes the S-rank hero and wonders if they just made eye contact. A pleased look crosses Yugo's face as he walks straight toward June, the significant height difference between them becoming more noticeable with every step. "What's your name and rank, kid?" he asks. June can't believe the famous hunter is actually talking to him. Yugo chuckles, assuring him it's fine and that it's been a while since he's spoken to someone who wasn't a fawning fan. June stammers out his name and rank. The famous hunter's expression is hard to read as he processes the information, and an awkward silence hangs between them. "Did you need something?" June asks. The S-rank hunter lets out a big smile. "Nope," he says cheerfully. "Sorry for interrupting. We should get tea sometime." He then heads off, leaving June completely puzzled by the bizarre encounter. The receptionist, meanwhile, is starstruck and can barely compose herself after the celebrity hunter spoke to her. June reminds her about his request and she quickly gets on it. Still wondering about the strange interaction, he takes the tablet she hands him with the coordinates to the gate and heads for the exit, excited for his first solo dungeon crawl. Later he arrives in the woods and spots a big shiny gate. Confirming it's the one he was assigned, he steps inside. The dungeon looks like a wide cave with a heavy, oppressive atmosphere. Reno emerges from the stone. "Is it true that F-rank demons are considered the weakest?" she asks. "Yeah," he says as they walk deeper inside. "Are you sensing something?" Suddenly a monster appears, moving with blinding speed. June notices it instantly. He turns his head instinctively, summoning his shadow sword and placing it between himself and the monster. The weapon absorbs the brunt of the impact, but the force is so strong he is sent flying backward. The smoke clears to reveal him kneeling but relatively unharmed. He wonders what kind of monster could be so fast. Stepping forward, he sees that he is facing numerous chaos wolves. June is surprised. Those are D-rank monsters. Reno notes that something is wrong. Looking at the wolves, June realizes the truth. This is a D-rank dungeon. He and Reno find themselves surrounded by 3 feral chaos wolves. A quick glance behind him confirms his fear. The gate has vanished. There's no escape. He knows that in his current state, beating these enemies will be tough. June calms himself, focusing on reducing their numbers. He charges a nearby wolf, ready to slash it with his shadow sword. Suddenly, he senses a paw approaching from the side and is forced to abandon his attack and leap back to avoid the sharp claws. He has barely caught his breath when he realizes another wolf is about to strike from behind. He dodges, finding himself surrounded once again. They fight with terrifying coordination, and he desperately tries to think of a way through. Dust and debris fill the air as the battle rages on. A chaos wolf opens its wide mouth and moves to take a bite out of the hunter. June blocks it with his shadow sword, but is put desperately on the defensive. Another wolf lunges, and all he can do is protect himself with his arms. The impact sends him crashing into the wall. Not only are they coordinated, but each one is brutally strong, attacking the instant they see an opening. He wonders if there is anything he can do. Inside the stone, Reno says, "I'm thinking of something." The wolves move closer, their blood-red eyes sensing a kill. An idea forms in June's mind, a desperate, risky gambit. He dematerializes his shadow sword, leaving himself defenseless. Reno is surprised. This means the wolves won't hesitate. Sure enough, all 3 monsters pounce at once. As Reno looks on with concern, at the last possible moment, his shadow weapon reappears. He makes a wide, sweeping slash, striking one of the wolves right in the mouth. Maintaining his swing, he delivers critical strikes to the other 2 monsters, turning them all to dust. June is relieved he was able to pull it off, while Reno is impressed by his strategy of deliberately creating an opening to lure them all in. He sits down to catch his breath. The fallen angel wonders what is happening, as they are clearly not in an F-rank dungeon. Now that they've entered, the only way out is to defeat the boss. They then hear a sound from the distance. Multiple more chaos wolves are coming. June is in disbelief, but Reno tells him not to worry. "Something is different now," she says. "Raise one hand forward, imagine shadow chains, and aim at the target." He does as she asks. Long dark chains spring forth from his hand and bind the nearest chaos wolf. He has gained a new ability, Shadow Bind. With a sharp jerk, he pulls the helpless wolf toward him and straight onto his waiting shadow sword, slashing it in half. June allows himself a small, confident smile. Another wolf jumps towards him, but he again uses Shadow Bind, chaining the monster mid-air. While the wolf is still suspended mid-air, an idea strikes him. Grabbing the end of the chain with both hands, he begins to swing it around and around, using the bound wolf like a demonic wrecking ball to smash into the other monsters around him. He is pleased with the options this new ability provides. He binds yet another wolf, then moves in and slashes it without difficulty. Reno notes that he has a natural talent for the new ability, but warns him to be careful as it consumes a lot of magic. This new power allows him to move forward, and the battle is soon over. He faced an even larger pack of Chaos Wolves, but was able to take them out with growing ease. As June stands amidst the defeated demons, Reno explains that hunters grow stronger the more they fight. A satisfied expression crosses June's face. He can feel himself getting stronger. He takes a breath and moves deeper into the dungeon. Reno watches him, realizing why her partner is growing so quickly. His physical abilities were already honed to a sharp edge through relentless training. He simply lacked real combat experience. Combined with his sharp mind, she sees that his potential is limitless and feels a thrill of excitement to watch him grow. They soon reach the deepest part of the dungeon, where the door to the boss room looms. June stands before it for a while, deep in thought. Reno emerges and asks him what's wrong. He explains that it is a hunter's duty to clear dungeons and that only a hunter can open the boss door. He feels a mix of fear and excitement. This is his chance to prove himself as a real hunter. "We're just getting started," Reno says, stopping his reminiscing. June clenches his fist in agreement and reiterates his vow, "I will become a hunter who can save the world." He places his hand on the handle and the door swings open, releasing a whoosh of wind and dark aura. The young hunter steps inside and the door closes behind him. He looks forward with a mix of determination and trepidation. A big armored tail twitches and June finds himself face to face with a D-rank boss, the Hell Scorpion. The Hell Scorpion is an imposing creature with 6 eyes on its thorax, razor-sharp teeth, and a deadly stinger and pincers. June notes that its outer shell looks incredibly tough, more like a mineral than mere armor. Reno senses the young hunter is shaking and asks if he is scared. "I'm fine," he insists. "Just a few jitters." The scorpion moves first, attempting to strike him from above with its pincer. It smashes into the ground with incredible force as June leaps out of the way. He knows that if he takes the monster head-on, he has no chance. The scorpion attacks again, and he is just barely able to block it with his shadow sword. He then leaps into the air, delivering multiple strikes all over the scorpion's body, but none of them can penetrate its tough carapace. He lands behind the monster and decides to focus on dodging while searching for a weak spot. No matter how tough the armor, the joints or base should be weaker. Reno observes the battle silently as he continues to slash all over the enemy's body, searching for that weak link. June goes for an attack from above and thrusts his shadow sword downward right onto the scorpion's head. Despite using his full force, the sword is still unable to penetrate the hard shell. He hasn't even made a scratch. The scorpion roars in anger and crystal shards form on its tail, which it then fires at the young hunter. He blocks some and is scratched by others, noting that it even has ranged attacks. "What can I do?" he wonders, asking Reno if she has any ideas. "It will be hard to damage it with your current approach," she replies. He realizes he'll have to push past his limits. As the scorpion turns and scuttles towards him rapidly, he casts Shadowbind, wrapping the chains around 2 of the scorpion's legs and causing it to lose its balance and fall. The monster quickly regroups. June knows he would have been done for if he'd been hit. As the scorpion gets back on its feet, June notices something crucial. A small crack on the monster's head, right where his sword had struck earlier. The young hunter realizes the key isn't slashing, it's blunt force. The scorpion now looks enraged and attacks with its pincer. June steps back to avoid the slash, noting that the monster's attacks are getting fiercer. "Change the size of your sword," Reno advises. "Slashing has proven ineffective." She reminds him of how he first manifested his shadow weapon. The memory flashes through his mind, not just a sword, but the ability to form any weapon. He sees she is correct. The scorpion moves to strike once more, and June leaps high into the air to get out of its way. Reno looks on with concern, knowing he won't be able to dodge the same attack in mid-air. The scorpion fires a volley of projectiles at him, but he is prepared. He casts a Shadowbind from above, grabs the chain tightly, and pulls himself down towards the dungeon boss. He summons his shadow weapon, but this time it forms not a blade, but a giant war hammer. With a guttural roar, he brings it down with maximum force right onto the scorpion's head. June takes a step back. It was enough. The beast's head has been completely bashed in. He holds his shadow hammer with pride, realizing he can create more than just swords. He thanks his fallen angel for her hint, but adds, "You could have just told me directly." Reno smiles. "It's important for you to figure things out for yourself," she replies. "Unexpected challenges are what help you grow." He sees her point as they both stand before the monster's corpse. June simply chuckles, hoping the next battle won't be quite as tense. The next day, back at the Japan Hunter Association headquarters, the receptionist is extremely apologetic for mistakenly sending him to a higher-level dungeon. June smiles and says it's fine, explaining that he grew a lot from the experience. Grateful, she shows him his reward, which will be transferred to his account. June looks at the check, 1.5 million yen. He's surprised it's so high, but she explains it's the standard reward for clearing a D-rank dungeon. She bows deeply, saying she hopes he comes back and addressing him as Mr. Hunter. The title fills him with pride. He's now truly living his dream. He heads outside and joyfully tells Reno they can finally buy the flowers they agreed on. As he thinks about what kind of bouquet to get, a green-haired girl walks by him. He recognizes her and turns around. She is looking at him too, and a smile of recognition spreads across her face. "June," she asks. He realizes it's Kaya, an old friend. Seeing her hunch was correct, she asks how he has been. He replies that he has finally made a contract with a divine spirit and is working hard, which clearly shocks her. People on the street stop and recognize her. She's the famous hunter who became a B rank in record time. Reno, hidden within the stone, seems a bit jealous and asks who he's talking to. He explains that she's his childhood friend, a hunter with incredible potential who hates demons more than anyone in the world. Flashback images show June and Kaya through the years from childhood to their teens, always super close. That changed one fateful day when Kaya and her brother faced a demon. The young man stopped turning to face the enemy. He screamed at his sister to keep running as he stood face to face with a demon more than twice his size. She refused to leave him behind, but he told her that at least one of them should survive. He desperately tried to fight, but was no match and was killed right in front of her, leaving her traumatized. 2 years ago, both June and Kaya obtained their sacred stones. He apologized to her then, as his divine spirit still hadn't appeared, meaning he couldn't fulfill his promise to fight alongside her. She understood, but replied with a serious expression that she couldn't afford to stop, and left him behind. Back in the present, June and Kaya are having dessert in a restaurant, catching up. She's impressed to hear he beat a D-rank dungeon all on his own, and comments that he really lives up to his potential. She then asks what kind of divine spirit he made a pact with. The question immediately makes him nervous. He hesitates, wondering how to answer. Reno, not pleased, says she can appear any time, but then his friend will see she is a demon. He tries to buy time, saying his spirit is a bit shy. Reno looks annoyed, retorting that she is not shy, but he internally explains the situation is complicated. Kaya decides to introduce her divine spirit first. She raises her hand with its green sacred stone, and the upper-ranked divine wind spirit named Wave appears. Looking like a fancy servant, he bows politely towards June. "It is a pleasure to meet you, Master Kaya's friend." He greets with a refined manner. Kaya then asks if he is going to take the rank reassessment. He replies that it is still some time away, so she suggests he get stronger in the meantime, and invites him to take on a C-rank dungeon with her. June looks worried, replying that the gap between them is too big, and he might end up being a burden. Kaya smiles, remembering how he used to lead her when they were kids. "Now it's my chance to return the favor," she says, stretching out her hand. Unable to turn this down, June shakes her hand, agreeing that they did promise to fight together. It's a risky but good opportunity for him to grow. Kaya, meanwhile, is beaming with delight. Later that evening, in a conference room at the Japan Hunter Association headquarters, an important meeting is underway. The head of the table gets to the main topic, the Meijin, powerful beings of A rank or higher who possess humanoid intelligence. For years they have kept a low profile, but recently, at least a dozen hunters have fallen victim to them. Kamu, the president of the Japan Hunter Association, remembers his own battles against them, recalling that their strength was truly exceptional. He lets out a loud laugh, adding that he would fight them himself if he were still in his prime. Section Chief Mizuki is not amused and states that her management system shows all gates being cleared properly. Just then, Yugo walks in as someone comments, "According to survivors, the Majin appeared after the gates were cleared." Still holding a bottle of alcohol, Yugo is surprised the meeting has already started. Mizuki is angry that he has arrived so late, but he remains unperturbed. "Getting angry will only ruin your beautiful face," he says casually. He sees the photos of the dead hunters on the screen and says he may have an idea of what to do. Mizuki is doubtful, but he assures her that he will handle it. Kamu trusts Yugo and says he is counting on the S-rank hunter, who then departs. As he walks away, he remembers Jun's face, wondering if his prediction will be correct. Elsewhere in a rundown area, a purple gate appears. Kaya asks Jun if he's nervous, and he admits that he is. Aside from dealing with a higher-level dungeon, he's still worried about her reaction when she finds out Reno is a demon. "I'll protect you no matter what," Kaya assures him, which comforts him. They enter the gate into a cave with a bluish hue and are immediately greeted by C-rank demons. Jun summons his shadow sword, but is surprised when Kaya simply attacks without hesitation. She is lightning fast, instantly beheading one of the demons with her spear. Jun is surprised by the intensity of her emotions and her sheer determination to eradicate all demons. Her power far exceeds his expectations. She turns towards him, her spear still dripping. "I also sense a demonic presence coming from that direction," she says, looking right at him. "Is it you?" He freezes, realizing she has found out his secret. She then gracefully spins, slashing 2 more demons clean in half. She turns to handle the others while Jun looks on even more impressed than before. Still, he wants to be useful. He summons his weapon to handle the monsters on the ground, parrying a demon attack and then countering with a powerful slash. The demons now look at him with fear. He has also grown. He transforms his shadow sword into a shadow gun and fires. The shadow projectiles are so powerful that half the demons' bodies disintegrate on impact. Kaya is surprised. She has never seen this type of ability before. Soon, the battle is over. Kaya lands back on the ground and praises Jun for holding his own even against C-rank demons. "I sensed a demonic presence coming from you again," she says, "but now there's nothing. It's probably fine." The young hunter is pleased he hasn't been caught yet, but then Reno asks if he just plans to keep up the charade forever. He remembers that his divine spirit isn't just some demon. She is his reliable partner. He looks at her through the stone and thinks it would be fine if he could just explain. But then he remembers her hatred for demons and is once again unsure of what to do. They keep moving forward and finally reach the door to the boss's room. "Are you focused?" she asks. He replies yes, but deep down he can't calm his racing heart. Kaya senses his apprehension. "I understand you'll be facing a C-rank boss," she says, assuring him. "But you're not alone. Don't hesitate to go all out." Jun smiles, deciding to save the conversation for later and focus on the boss first. "Thanks," he says as they fist bump and then enter the boss's room. They are met by the C-rank dungeon boss, a cyclops about 3 times their size. Jun is awed by its overwhelming presence, while Kaya instantly springs into action, determined to kill all demons no matter how powerful they are. She casts Wind Spirit Mantle and flies right at the huge demon. The cyclops raises its large wooden club to strike her, but Jun casts Shadow Bind, wrapping the chains around the club and yanking it off course. The Shadow Bind prevents the cyclops from lowering its weapon, allowing Kaya to deliver a direct hit to the monster's midsection. It grits its teeth, roaring in anger as it shatters the shadow chains. As Kaya moves back, a look of understanding passes between them. Without exchanging a single word, they know exactly what to do. They both jump at the monster, attacking in perfect sync from opposite sides. The monster screams in pain. Jun feels a surge of pride at their perfect timing. They move in again, weaving and striking in another perfectly synchronized assault that the Cyclops is unable to defend against. Kaya is happy, realizing they are thinking the same things, constantly changing positions and disrupting the monster's focus. She moves in again, slashing the demon's chest. It raises its club, but Jun once again casts Shadow Bind from behind, not allowing it a chance to counterattack. The boss is now significantly weakened, and the binding ability holds fast. "Kaya now," Jun shouts. "Finish it." "Thanks," she calls back, then casts another ability, Wind Shower. A torrent of green magic rains down on the monster, ending the fight in a brilliant explosion. "Amazing," Jun breathes. He then sees her running at him, a huge smile on her face. She calls out his name, her face alight with a joy that makes her even more beautiful, causing him to blush. They give each other a high five, celebrating how well they fought together. Still, he knows he must not be satisfied, and must continue to grow. Wave emerges from her stone and compliments their exceptional teamwork. "It's because we've known each other for years," Kaya replies. "As a team, we can go anywhere." Jun, however, lets out a nervous gulp. He knows he can't hide his secret any longer. "Kaya, there's something I need to tell you." He starts to remove the glove from his hand, but before he can finish, they both suddenly sense a new dangerous presence. They look to the side as a flash of violent energy strikes the ground like lightning. As the dust settles, a demon emerges and the 2 hunters look on with concern. It's the two-horned demon who was watching when Reno became June's partner. "I've finally found you," he says, looking at them with evil intent. A palpable malevolence rolls off him, a pressure leagues beyond any demon June has ever encountered. He is also intrigued to be seeing a humanoid demon for the first time. Kaya steps in front of June, blocking him protectively. "Are you a Majin?" she asks, her voice tense. The demon is impressed. "Indeed," he smirks. "I am the Majin named Grom." Kaya confirms the rumors are true. She activates her wind power and tells June, "Run, I'll hold him off." June hates this plan. "No, we escape together." Kaya gathers wind in her hand and shoots a laser-like beam toward the enemy. Grom dodges the attack effortlessly. The Majin taunts, "From my perspective, you're moving in slow motion." His words make Kaya grind her teeth. June watches them trade blows, recognizing they are on a completely different level. He grips his fist in frustration, feeling useless. Grom catches Kaya's spear mid-thrust, stopping her in her tracks. He then throws her away like a doll. She hasn't given up. Flying through the airwave advises her to use her secret technique. She forms a hand gesture, preparing. "Maelstrom!" she cries, and multiple tornadoes erupt from her palm, all converging on the demon. June shields himself from the incredible wind pressure. As the storm subsides, he hears laughter. The demon steps out from the destructive explosion, completely unharmed. "That was just a gentle breeze," he mocks. His words only make the woman more determined. "I'll kill every last one of you demons," she declares, dashing toward Grom. He finds her comment funny. "Ironic, don't you think?" "What's so funny?" Kaya demands. Grom points at June. "Because your precious friend has made a pact with a demon." June feels completely exposed. "You're lying," Kaya shouts at the Majin. "There's no way June would ever make a pact with a demon, and he would never keep it a secret from me." June stays silent, his fist clenched. Kaya sees his silence. "June, deny it," she pleads. But he can't even look at her. He knows he has to come clean. "It's true," he admits, summoning Reno. Kaya is stunned. She can't believe a demon just emerged from his sacred stone. June tries to introduce Reno, but Kaya's grip tightens on her spear. "How could you?" she yells, her voice cracking with betrayal. "How could you make a pact with a demon? I can never trust you again." "Kaya, please let me explain." She doesn't listen. She charges recklessly toward the Majin. Grom catches her by the throat mid-air, his grip tightening, strangling her. As he readies his other arm to strike a fatal blow, shadow chains erupt from June's hand, binding Grom's arm. "Let her go!" June yells. Grom shatters the chains with contemptuous ease. "Finally!" The Majin grins. The main act has entered the picture. He throws Kaya aside. June catches her before she hits the ground. "I'm sorry," he whispers to the unconscious girl. Grom points at Reno. "You're the one I'm interested in." "Do you know him?" June asks Reno. She explains that the Majin tried to recruit her when she became a fallen angel, but she escaped them. June now understands the true power he's facing. "Demons are my enemies," Reno tells Grom. "I will never join you." The Majin laughs. "Why not? You could have revenge on the divine spirits who abandoned you." "I have no interest in revenge," Reno declares. "Then accept what you are. A demon killed, divine spirits kill humans. What does it matter? Join us." "Stop it!" Reno yells, a deep hurt building within her as tears well in her eyes. June stands up for his fallen angel. "She is different from you," he tells Grom. The Majin looks confused. "A demon is a term for those who hurt others without reason," June explains. "Reno is too kind to be a demon. She's my partner." Reno is touched by his words. But Grom only hears the ravings of a weakling. He prepares to crush them for their sentimentality. June and Reno get ready to fight together. "Exploit his overconfidence," Reno advises. "Create an opening so we can escape." The Majin dashes forward. June moves into a blocking position, but in a flash, the demon is already behind him. A swift kick sends June flying into a rock wall. As he recovers, he uses Shadow Bind, but Grom shatters the chains instantly. June materializes a gun and fires, but the Majin catches every single bullet, then opens his hand and lets them clatter to the ground. "Any more tricks?" he asks condescendingly. June is frustrated, realizing he's being completely toyed with. Across the cavern, Kaya is waking up. She can vaguely see the battle, the seriousness of the situation dawning on her. She sees June and his demon partner working desperately to keep Grom at bay. She watches Grom punch June and a scream of worry escapes her lips. But she sees that June and Reno are still standing their ground, that Reno is fully supporting June. She sees their bond. Why, she questions. Why did he make a pact with her? Her eyes sadden at the thought that she can't trust him any longer. Grom kicks June again and again, laughing at how much his enemy is struggling. Yet June, bruised and battered, still stands. The battle had been ferocious, but now the dungeon was dead silent. June asked how a simple punch was so effective when divine power was the only thing that could hurt demons. In reality, Yugo had coated his entire body with divine power, but even so, his physical strength was abnormal. Cursing the unexpected beating, Grom summoned a ball of magic and launched a beam of darkness. Not even bothering to dodge, the hunter stood his ground and cast a spell of his own. An enormous ray of light shot forward, completely devouring the demon's magic. The Magin was stunned, unable to believe he was being so utterly overwhelmed. He barely dodged a direct hit, but the spell's area of effect was so huge that it still took his entire arm off. As the enemy screamed in pain, June was mesmerized by his ally, who hadn't even moved. Goaded into using his full abilities, the Magian seethed with anger. Reeling from the damage, he released a burst of magic and a huge mass of killing intent. However, before he could do anything more, another Majin Fane appeared and held him back. The atmosphere instantly grew immensely heavy. Grom looked back in anger, questioning why his comrade was interrupting. Called a fool, he was told that he'd die if he used his spells in his current state. Turning to Yugo, the powerful demon acknowledged his strength, saying a fight would only harm them both. The hunter agreed with a smile, saying he definitely looked strong. With this, they agreed to call it a draw and retreat. Grom tried to argue, but one commanding look from Fane was all it took to make him obey. Before leaving, he gave one last nasty glare, vowing to take their heads one day. With that, the portal closed, leaving the hunters alone in the now silent dungeon. Yugo wondered if they had just escaped that easily. June called to him and showed his gratitude with a deep, long bow. They decided to talk while heading back to the surface. Yugo suspected June had a contract with a demon from the first time they met. Considering the Meijin's movements, he figured they were being targeted and had followed behind. Moving on, he asked if June and Kaya had managed to make up. Kaya realized that her friend hadn't changed, but getting a chilling tone, she turned to Reno and said she still didn't trust her. The fallen angel told her to do as she saw fit, while June struggled to calm them down. Yugo thought deeply about the former spirit and believed she'd be a significant key. As such, he welcomed her along with her partner's humanity. Feeling a wave of hope, June smiled. Building on this burst of inspiration, he rushed to the S-Rank hunter and declared his determination to grow much stronger. Although they were all surprised by his unexpected vigor, they smiled in support. Yugo dashed forward to leave them all behind, saying he looked forward to the day they fought side by side. The top hunter later gave Chairman Kamu a full report, adding that the demons should remain quiet for a while. Kamu thanked him, glad to have left things in his capable hands. Moving on, he asked if Yugo remembered the former A-rank hunter Yusei. He was now a notorious criminal who had killed several hunters after being fired for misconduct. They had him in custody, but he suddenly disappeared. Since he had another matter to address, Yugo couldn't step in for now. Thinking about June and Kaya, he said he had two promising juniors to recommend. As they ended the call, Kamu apologized for making someone else in the room wait. He took a seat to listen. At the other end of the table was Yusei's former disciple, the A-rank hunter Uji, who had vowed to stop his old master's heinous acts. A long time before the incident, Uji looked over the city with his master, declaring his goal of becoming a perfect hunter. Yusei complained about how stiff he was, not wanting a boring disciple. Since he had put in the effort, he should enjoy the experience. The master told him to forget his responsibilities for a moment. One could become a hero just by killing demons, but the rules made things difficult. Even so, he should pursue his ideals and refuse to become the association's dog. The young Uji accepted the advice, mockingly saying he wouldn't be like his mentor. It was a beautiful day. While running with Kaya, June shared how he and Reno had bought flowers. Thanks to that, his room was getting brighter. Intrigued, Kaya asked about the demon's preferences, but June told her to ask herself. A curt and dismissive response was all they got. When told to be a bit friendlier, Reno retorted that Kaya was the one who refused to trust them. June tried to mediate but was promptly told to shut his mouth. While he was silenced, they overheard a conversation about a hunter criminal who had escaped prison. Struck with fear, some people decided to head home early. Asked if she knew anything, Kaya went on about Yusei, who was considered highly skilled. They wondered what could have possibly triggered his crimes. Just then, their phones pinged. They had both received an email from the association. What's more, they were being summoned immediately. Since it followed a recommendation from Yugo, They decided to head to the location first. At the association headquarters, they were greeted by Hayashi from the Abnormal Measures Department. Due to the S-Ranker's high praise, they were being entrusted with the mission of searching for the criminal. The police were conducting an investigation, but the association needed to take action as well. After all, it was possible the target was hiding in the gate nearest to where he escaped. As hunters, they were tasked to investigate that C-rank gate. Jun's confidence dropped. The opponent was a former A-ranker. With this, he was informed that another person would be joining their group. The association had requested assistance from an equally ranked hunter who should arrive soon. As he said this, Uji entered the room inciting a loud reaction from Kaya. The hunter greeted her with uncaring eyes, saying it had been a while. Leaving the room, Hayashi told them to look at the documents for more details. Catching up, the two former comrades talked about how they had cleared a gate together long ago. Uji was the only genius from their generation who was able to rise to A rank. Delighted to work with someone like him, Jun extended his hand to introduce himself. Although the top-ranking hunter reciprocated the introduction, he ignored the extended hand, declining the bid for friendship. Instead, he got straight to the point, stating that he had no intention of teaming up with them. In disbelief, Kaya asked why. Frankly speaking, he said, "You'll only be a hindrance." He had decided this was his personal responsibility, and would search for his old master alone. The young man turned to leave, ignoring her repeated calls to wait. It was Jun's turn to speak. He refused the idea, saying it was imperative that they work together. Once more, Uji said they'd only be a nuisance, but Jun argued that the search would be easier if they cleared the gate of demons. In other words, doing things alone was the less efficient approach. His logic reached the A-ranker. Vying for their usefulness, the two promised to do their best. Convinced, the hunter sighed in resignation and told them to do what they wanted. That said, he'd do the same and left without looking back. Since they had no plan, the two decided to tail their comrade. Meanwhile, at an abandoned building, the chains and barricade were strewn on the ground. A small group entered with flashlights, wanting to turn it into their territory. Suddenly, they saw a huge structure in the middle of a classroom, frozen solid in the air. It was a dungeon gate completely encased in thick ice. They took out their phones to contact the association. Suddenly, it was silent. One of the wanderers looked back and found his two companions frozen solid. He dropped to the ground in shock, and his flashlight shone on a figure in the dark. Before he could do anything, the young man was completely frozen and promptly shattered into pieces. Yusei made quick work of them, saying he had to hide better as the unnecessary corpses were piling up. Staring at the frozen gate, he stated that he wasn't wrong. To him, the first goal was to take revenge on the association. Deep in the forest, a gate surged with power. Before entering, Uji gave a final reminder that he was going to do things his way. Jun said he wanted to tell him something first. If they were going to work together, he should inform him about Rino's situation. The hunter revealed that Yugo had already told him about the pact with the demon. They were surprised by his reaction and asked if he wasn't going to condemn the idea. To him, rather than a contract being inherently immoral, it was one's actions that determined evil. Jun was stunned by the open-minded thinking, so Kaya reaffirmed that he wasn't as bad as he seemed. The top hunter entered the gate while Jun smiled in relief, finding out that there were people who thought that way. Inside the gate, a castle-like environment appeared. The party quickly made their way through and soon faced the spider dungeon boss. As expected of a C-ranker, it wouldn't be easy. With dangerous speed, it attacked, going straight for Jun. However, Uji moved even faster and encased the entire enemy in a thick shell of ice. They looked on in surprise, seeing the spider freeze in an instant. It broke and shattered, falling to the ground in pieces. They didn't expect it, but the A-ranker had arrived with his spirit Yuki and provided support. Thanking him for saving them, they asked about his search, but it had already been completed. There were no clues, so they had no reason to stay. That said, it was amazing how he had instantly defeated the boss, which even Kaya was struggling against. She tried to go after the self-centered hunter, but saw that Jun wasn't moving. Grinning widely, he announced that a new ability had just awakened during the fight, Residual Shadow Sense, which detects traces of shadows to locate a target. This immediately grabbed Uji's attention. If it was within 24 hours, the skill could follow the footsteps of whoever was there. Running to the former disciple, Jun excitedly said they might find the target this way. Asked for any place that might be significant, Uji thought about it and shared that there was a nearby hill where he and his master used to talk. Without saying another word, he started walking away, and they could only assume he was telling them to follow. A while later, they reached the hill. He never thought he'd come back there after the things his master did. Noting how the place must hold several memories, Jun was told to stop wasting time and use the ability. As he followed instructions, darkness enveloped his eyes and spread across the area like a grid. There they saw footsteps made out of shadows, clearly showing the target's movement. As such, he confirmed that someone was there. It was just one person and he couldn't make out who it was, but it stood beside where Uji was. Activating more of his ability, he materialized the shadow's characteristics, and with this Yusei's figure appeared. Seeing it, the disciple confirmed his master's visit, but fell sullen, questioning why he would think of coming there. Back then, he had wondered why his master always brought him there, but was told that he was just tagging along, and the top hunter went there for a break. Looking over the city, he felt free, and had turned it into a routine to shake off doubts. That same day, he had told his student to live a life without being bound to certain things. Reminded of this, he remembered the countless things he had learned and calmed himself down. June worried about him, but Uji brushed it off, saying they had to get to work. Since they already knew his exact location, they headed out right away. Yusei had likely shaken off some doubts on the hill, but his end goal was still unclear. Meanwhile, in the association's gate management system department, Miss Hayashi monitored her screen and suddenly said that she felt something was off. Taking a closer look, she remembered something important and urgently put everyone on high alert, demanding the internal light immediately. Getting ready, she called to everyone present. "Possibility of a gate break," she announced, ordering all hunters to search for the gate. The party of 3 ran around the forest, moving fast to chase their target. Just then, their phones rang at the same time, alerting them to the emergency announcement. The exact coordinates of the gate were unknown, so they were tasked to do an immediate survey. If June remembered correctly, it would take 7 days for a gate to enter a breaking stage. Since it could happen at any moment, they had to hurry but would risk losing Yusei's trace. Uji remembered his master and his habit of visiting the hill to shake off doubts. With this, he got an idea of what the rebel hunter's goal might be. Suddenly grabbing onto his young comrade, he asked him to guide them fast, as the target's exact goal was causing the gate break. Understanding the situation, June took the lead and they rushed through the forest. Soon enough, they reached the abandoned school. Following the shadow traces, they headed straight inside, ascertaining the target's destination and the likely location of the gate. Just then, a huge bolt of darkness shot out of the building's roof, reaching the heavens. It turned the sky dark, and that very phenomenon reminded June and Kaya of an unforgettable view. It was etched into their brains as it had signaled the day their families died. As such, the two powered up that instant, knowing they had to stop the demons no matter what. The windows broke open and countless enemies started pouring out. The hunters charged in, taking as many out as possible to minimize the destruction. They tore through the monsters, intending to hold the horde back until reinforcements arrived. While the two were doing their best, Uji created a path of ice leading straight into the building. He hopped in alone, leaving the others to fend for themselves. The self-centered hunter was working on his own again, and so they had no choice but to struggle on their own. Drained from the unrelenting battle, they started to reach their limit. Just then, blasts of magic burst forth, taking out waves of enemies in an instant. They had done a great job of holding out, and reinforcements had finally arrived. Seeing everyone charge in, June was surprised by the number of hunters that appeared, and decided to pull his own weight. That said, people started to notice that they didn't feel any mana coming from the rookie hunter. If he kept fighting like that, people would eventually figure out his secret. He was unable to leave them there, but fortunately, Kaya whipped up a storm, taking out several beasts and telling him to leave things to her while he provided Uji with support. He couldn't thank her enough and dashed right into the school. Taking out the demons inside, he moved deeper in and suddenly felt a chill in the air. In one of the classrooms, he found someone fighting. There were huge pikes of ice everywhere, and a powerful monster was frozen solid. Uji broke it into multiple pieces, taking the gate boss out without much trouble. Walking back to June, he shared that Yusei had already left the building. Even if they were able to stop the break, it would be pointless, as he'd just try the same thing again. The young hunter said it wasn't pointless, eliciting the top ranker's anger as he acted like he knew something. His eyes were covered in an aura of darkness, reminding Uji that they had gotten there because of his ability. Considering this, it was far too early to give up on their goal. Since he had defeated the boss so fast, they could still catch up with Yusei. June pulled on the disciple, telling him to hurry before he got too far from them. At that moment, all Uji could see was his back and the hand that was urgently pulling him forward, taking it back. He recovered his composure and thanked his comrade for bringing him back to his senses. June replied that it was too early for thanks. They could settle the pleasantries once everything was finished. The two rushed forward, following the shadow traces, determined to put an end to this. Later, they reached the association system headquarters, the very place the shadow was heading. If the gate management system was destroyed, the world would be thrown into chaos. The place was already in ruins. Ice blocks littered the area along with debris and rubble. To make things worse, employees frozen in entire blocks of ice cluttered the floor. They were too late. Security Hunter's staff, everyone was already subdued. Uji dashed on, leaving the young hunter there. Following the trail of destruction, he sped deeper into the building. In the middle of it all was Yusei, standing meters away from the main generator. He had placed a powerful explosive there, beeping and ready to blow the association apart. Just then, shards of ice shot at him, but he blocked them with little to no effort. Uji had made it just in time. The reunion didn't go too well. The master told him not to spoil his plan, which was progressing so smoothly. Uji declared that his master's crimes would end right there. Hearing this confidence, Yusei flicked his finger, causing a huge wall of ice to block the entrance. It was thick enough to stop anyone from entering, and since it was their long-awaited reunion, he didn't want to be disturbed. They heard June banging from outside. The master suddenly asked if his former disciple wanted to take revenge. With determined eyes, Uji factually stated that he couldn't afford to be lenient with him. After all that, he still hadn't changed. Yusei called on Flo, his high-ranking divine spirit, and told the disciple to go all out. He didn't need to be told. Yuki was already out as well. There was only one condition to win, destroying the traitor and the device. If he fought with the intention to buy time and call for reinforcements, he would certainly die. He summoned multiple ice pikes, knowing they must reach a conclusion right then and there. Watching him send the projectiles forward, Yusei acknowledged his growth as a hunter. Unfortunately, they were nothing in the face of the one who had taught him. Using the same spell, the master overpowered his student's attack. Fighting head-on would be disadvantageous, so Uji summoned dual ice blades. Amused, the traitor smiled, reminding him who taught the technique. As he must already know the answer, he summoned an ice blade which was cruder, but also much harder. For his first move, the student threw one of his weapons, using it like a dagger. Yusei swatted it away, surprised that he would discard the advantage of dual swords so easily. Now he just had to be careful of the opponent's armed left side. He did not expect that a blade would come speeding from the right as well. They crossed over and he barely dodged to keep his head on his neck. Against his expectations, the student had already generated a new sword. The battle intensified, and the young hunter continued to hack at the veteran, relentlessly throwing his blades at him. It was an interesting tactic, only possible since his ice regeneration speed was faster. He commended Uji, surprised and excited by the way he fought. With a gaze as cold as his power, the student said he wasn't the same person anymore and believed that his tactics were working. However, Yusei felt like he was being underestimated. He decided to get serious and show him his new ability. On the other side of the room, June was pounding on the ice wall. However, its creator was considerably strong, so all he could do now was keep trying. The huge block of ice beside Yusei kept growing, seemingly molding into something else. After a while, a perfect clone materialized, rendering Uji's dual-wielding obsolete. The student foolishly thought that a petty doll couldn't be that strong. Believing this, he charged in confidently. However, the petty doll blocked his blade completely, and he couldn't even move an inch. Sent back, he was told that the clone moved independently and was at the same level as its creator. Uji struggled, thinking of a way to deal with the well-made doll. With this, it was 2-on-1, and it was too bad that his friend couldn't join. June heard the development from the other side and tried to hurry up while the explosive continued its countdown. The battle intensified and frozen blades clashed against each other. The student tried to fend off the clone, but became so preoccupied that he left an opening for Yusei to strike. A quick combo left him flying and injured, but the barrage didn't end as the master continued to shoot countless shards of ice his way. Seeing his student defend, the traitor chuckled, saying it was rare to see him so lively. Uji panted in exhaustion and pain, unable to believe the huge gap between them. He gritted his teeth in anger. If he was so strong, then why did he have to waste his extraordinary skills on committing evil? Hearing this, Yusei rejected the idea that he was evil. Nothing had changed since they met. He was just more honest with himself. All hunters who sought to defeat monsters would use any means to close the most amount of gates. However, the world was restricted by the association, and he was fed up with the system. As such, he had ignored those rules and conquered countless gates, but was terminated as a result. Uji argued that he had committed murder and received a chilling glare in response. To Yusei, there was nothing wrong with killing mindless dogs who did nothing but obey the association. Reality set in and they realized that there was no defending him anymore. With the ongoing gate break, the gate system would collapse along with the association itself. For his revenge, he had vowed to set the hunters free from the tyrants collaring them. Uji cursed him, and his ideals confirming that he really had changed. Although trembling in weakness, he stood up, unwilling to let it just happen. As his former disciple, he promised to stop him right then and there. While he could keep barking, he was already trapped, frozen solid from the ground up. He hadn't noticed, but the ice was rapidly creeping up his legs. With all his limbs immobilized, he couldn't do anything as his master pointed his blade at his head. "Goodbye," Yusei said, raising his weapon. Just then, they were interrupted as the wall blocking the entrance exploded. Jun barged in on their fight, splitting them apart with a swing of his hammer. Putting himself between them, he told the traitor to stop with the nonsense. Jun broke the ice off Uji's limbs, allowing him to move once more. Hammering away, he confidently assured him that he knew how to break the ice. All this time, he had been hitting the wall, desperate to come and help. Comforted by his comrade's presence, Uji smiled. Meanwhile, Yusei overheard his statement about knowing how to destroy his ice. The master doubted this, as he must just be another piece of trash in the association. With the numbers now evened out, a new battle began. Since having an opponent like Uji was troublesome on its own, he decided to go after the weakling and regain the numbers advantage. As he swung his blade, his student came between them, defending his partner. Holding the weapon tight, he vowed to defeat him himself. Annoyed, Yusei called on his clone and told it to take care of Jun. The two clashed, exchanging blows back and forth. Its attacks were sharp, and the swings were undeniably heavy. However, the image of Grom appeared in his mind as menacing and evil as the demon was. With the memory of the life-threatening battle, his mind and body calmed down. Looking back, Uji worried for Jun, already expecting him to have a difficult time. Noticing his divided attention, Yusei guessed that he must be thinking about his comrade. That said, it should be impossible for him to defeat his spell. As he said this, the clone was split in half with one swing as a dark shadow cut right through it. Both the master and student couldn't believe their eyes. Standing triumphantly with a stern gaze, Jun said, "It's not even worth comparing to Grom." Sending Uji back, Yusei had a revelation and correctly guessed that he must have made a pact with a demon. Feeling smart, he tried to give advice and asked if he could enjoy life hiding the fact that he was working with a demon. Looking at the worried young man, he suggested joining hands and changing the unfair world together. Quietly, Jun acknowledged that he might just be right, but he at least knew that no matter what life he lived, his goal was to save the world as a hunter. On the other hand, the traitor's actions so far were no different from those of demons. With this, he was determined to defeat him as a hunter. Hearing him, Uji was also enlightened. Relationships such as master and student wouldn't matter to a hunter. As Jun said, he was nothing but an evil that needed to be slain. Driven by their determination, the two stood against him. Yusei asked if they really wanted to die so badly. Insulted and annoyed, he dashed forward and hit both hunters in an instant. Surprised as they felt like they were prepared, the foolish young men realized that the top hunter had been hiding his true power so far. Yusei started to pressure them, unleashing a barrage of swings and swipes. Jun could barely keep up as his movements were completely different from the clones. Thinking of a way to be useful, he used his shadow search ability. The dark aura enveloped his eyes and he started seeing the enemy's silhouettes. Based on the afterimages of his movements, he could see the trajectory of his future actions. That said, it would be much better if he could somehow share this with his allies. Reno chimed in, saying it was fully possible if he applied his mana to his allies' eyes. Doing just that, the familiar dark energy appeared on Uji's face. Looking at the enemy, he saw Yusei's afterimages and realized that it was what Jun must be seeing. Following the trajectory laid out, he perfectly dodged the next attack, even fitting in a counter of his own. Unfortunately, this still wasn't enough to overcome the master's skills. As Uji was about to be done, his partner came in a flash, deflecting one of Yusei's blades. He finally realized that they had begun reading his moves. Evading a swing, he backed away for now, cursing the newfound power. Letting his blades go, he told them not to get too arrogant. His student recognized his form and that he was about to end things with brute force. Gathering his energy, Yusei cast his ultimate move to finish them off. Uji refused to allow it. He assumed the very same stance. With this, the two hunters summoned their ice dragons, each reflecting their rage and refinement of magic. The two ultimate moves clashed, and the master's creation devoured the students. As the dragons fell, the cold mist and icicles settled, revealing the victor of the battle. As Yusei stood triumphantly, he was completely unaware that his two opponents were now behind him. Knowing full well that he was not going to move, they revealed themselves, blades inches from his neck. He turned around confused, arguing that it should be impossible. However, when he faced them, the two hunters only dealt the final blow. The attack went through his chest, also cutting the detonator in half. With this, the former A-rank hunter fell and was caught by his old disciple. Uji liked his way of thinking and his carefree nature, longing for it as he didn't have such ideals. Unfortunately, his master chose the wrong path, so this was the end for him. Looking at them, Jun realized that there was no human who didn't make mistakes, and even the strong fall sometimes. Even so, with Reno, he had to remain on the path they believed was right. With the situation settled, things calmed down along with the gate break in the school. The association's people should come soon to take Yusei into custody. The traitor was bound and his wounds were preserved with ice. Uji wouldn't have won alone and would have likely lost without Jun's help. With this, he expressed his gratitude to the young hunter, saying he owed him. Finally, they shook hands, earning each other's acknowledgement. As expected, the association later came for Yusei. They thanked the two hunters for allowing them to secure the target. However, when they were about to leave, someone suddenly held Jun still. He looked back in confusion, not understanding the fuss. A man stepped out of a car, mentioning reports of his involvement with a demon. Renji, chief of the anti-normality department, said he had to be taken into custody too. In the association headquarters, Jun was brought in bound and restricted from making sudden movements. Following the men who took him, he was told that they were headed to a conference room where his fate would be decided. As expected, exposing his abilities to the other hunters last night wouldn't end well for him. Reaching their destination, he was instructed to mind his manners before entering. Inside, he was met with a highly influential group of people. The chairman and Yugo were there, greeting him with a light mood. On the other hand, a couple of others were also present, glaring at him with chilling eyes. The room's atmosphere immediately grew thick as the conference kicked off. Their main topic would revolve around Jun's involvement with a demon. Based on the discussion, they would take measures by evaluating the young man's situation. Starting strong, they outright asked him if he really did have a contract with a demon. They were asking despite already knowing the truth, so lying would only put him at a disadvantage. With this, he told Reno to come out. The fallen angel appeared, looking at them with cold eyes. Upon seeing the humanoid demon, the S-ranker Tsubasa seethed with anger. He had not only worked with a demon but a powerful Majin. He was furious that he was acting so bravely and aimed to erase her existence right there. Jun rushed between them, wanting to protect his partner. A bright red ray of mana shot forward, but a familiar portal appeared to swallow it up. Yugo had stepped in to save them, calling his peer out for being too hasty since the discussion had just begun. He suggested taking a seat for now. Still fired up, Tsubasa threatened to erase him, arguing that a discussion would be a waste of time. Unable to back his words, he took a seat, and the young man was told to explain himself. Jun started off revealing the truth about Reno being a fallen angel. It was a claim that was difficult to believe, as they had never heard of such a case. Just then, Nova appeared to whisper something. Understanding, Yugo asked her to also explain to everyone. Even in the divine world, there were rumors of an angel falling and turning into a demon. As this backed the claim, he thanked her for her support. Seemingly satisfied, he asked if there was any reason for them to debate any further. That said, it was now undeniable that she was a demon, and killing their kind was the association's job. Renji chimed in, wondering how she had lost her status in the first place. He was met with silence, and even Jun worried. Reno said she couldn't say anything aside from confirming that she had turned into a demon. Refusing to answer didn't help their case, as it opened the possibility of her working as a spy. They insisted that she wasn't a dangerous demon but had no foolproof way of guaranteeing the claim. He fell silent, pressured by the intent in their gazes, and struggling to think of anything to do. As the tension grew, it was quickly dispelled as someone entered with a light hum. A young woman appeared, apologizing for arriving late and saying she had fallen asleep twice since the bed was too comfortable. She was scolded for being unpunctual, which was an unbecoming trait for an S-ranker. Telling them to complain to the bed instead, she asked to be caught up on the topic. Her reaction was quite lukewarm compared to the heavy subject matter. Before moving on, she shared that there were 2 people standing by the door outside. While the others were confused, Yugo smiled, saying he finally had a chance now. Calling to the visitors, he told them to enter. The doors opened, revealing Uji and Kaya. They all stared in surprise, not expecting them to be there. Questioned why they were being let in, he said they were also involved, even confirming with the chairman. After a moment of thought, Kamu allowed their presence, wanting to hear the opinion of those deeply close to the young man. With this, the 2 stood by his side, but Jun worried that doing so would only drag them along to his punishment. Uji asked them to consider that he would not have been able to capture Yusei without the defendant's help. Kaya added that they had once fought a Majin, and that Reno wouldn't have helped if she were evil. Ending their statements, she sincerely asked for their consideration, asking them to believe as their friends had fought bravely against their adversaries. Jun couldn't help but be touched, and Renji acknowledged how serious it must be if even Kaya, who hated demons, was willing to go so far. Yugo said it was proof that she wasn't dangerous for now, but couldn't guarantee their future. With this, he proposed that the two had the potential to save the world as they knew it. Tsubasa scolded him for being too idealistic, as the risk of betrayal was higher. Since it was their job to respond to such a case, Yugo volunteered to take responsibility should that happen. As the tension grew once more, he reaffirmed his faith in their potential as the best option to defeat demons. Whatever happened, Jun didn't want to waste his allies' efforts. Soon enough, the time to decide came, and those wishing for disciplinary action were told to raise their hands. Tsubasa and Renji raised their hands, while the two other S-rankers smiled at each other, keeping their arms low. Himi's response frustrated them, so she reasoned that it was rare for Yugo to go so far. With the votes split, they turned to the chairman for a final decision. The old man was silent and deep in thought. After a while, he opened his eyes, staring deep into the pair's hearts. For now, he asked to hear their intentions before making his choice. Addressing Reno first, he questioned the reason why she had made a contract with her partner. Seemingly having earned her respect, she first lowered herself to the ground, meeting the humans, and explaining that she simply wanted to help him whose heart was suffering. Moreover, demons were her enemies as well, and she wanted to defeat them with Jun. The chairman asked if the hunter had anything to say. Remembering his family, he stated that he didn't want to let anyone lose their lives unfairly. For that reason, he would give his very best to fight the demons. With this, he offered himself up, asking that they be used for the sake of the world. The room was silent, and his words seemed to even reach Tsubasa. After another moment of consideration, Kamu said he had made his decision. Everyone fell silent as they awaited the chairman's resolution. For now, Jun and Reno would continue their activities while being overseen by the association. The conclusion surprised most of them except Yugo, who smiled in satisfaction. Tsubasa was incredulous and momentarily questioned the old man's decision, not expecting it from someone like him. The hunter refused to accept without a good reason. Kamu sighed in slight exhaustion and explained that he saw their value to the association, which already had its worth. Moreover, he had not seen any lies while looking into Jun's eyes and listening to his words. Despite the uncertainty of the future, he had not grown as soft as they might think. Since no one could fool the chairman's eyes, Tsubasa backed down and followed his decision. Moving to the conditions, he wanted the fallen angel to provide information on the Meijin. Moreover, they would be building achievements through the subjugation of demons. If they acted under these conditions, they could win their trust soon enough. Jun gladly accepted the generous offer, bowing to thank them for their understanding. With this, they were to explain everything they knew about demons without leaving out details. Uji and Kaya were asked to leave the room for the sake of secrecy. Since the information they had about demons was limited, the chairman mentioned the Majin and asked to know about their power and numbers. As far as Reno knew, there were around 100 of them, and they held a social structure like the hunters. The high number took them by surprise, but she made it worse, adding that dozens of them were at least on the same level as Yugo. With that said, the information was very bad news for the association, but Yugo confidently said that they'd somehow take care of it. On top of that, there was a being who led those Majin, but she didn't know more about it. This was crucial information, as they had finally confirmed that the enemy had a king figure. She knew all this because of her experience after falling as an angel. She had been taken to their base and invited to join their ranks. She was completely overwhelmed by their numbers, and while they tried to brainwash her, she managed to escape at the last moment. They then asked for their purpose and why they were invading the human realm. Demons had the same needs as humans, such as food and sleep, but they also had their own primal instincts, which were to invade and dominate. If this was the case, it meant there was no reasoning or negotiating. However, Meijin possessed intelligence and reasoning on top of their instincts. This meant that the being acting as their king should have a goal in mind. While it was highly possible she didn't know more about the details, the information fired Tsubasa up. He vowed to destroy their goals, declaring that if they were invading the peace of humans for such trivial reasons, it would be interesting. Yugo was also intrigued, wanting to fight intelligent Majin and their king. For now, they thanked Reno, saying they might contact her again in the future. Despite all that, their goal was still the same: they would continue to fight against the demons. For now, Jun would remain in their custody and be watched mainly for security purposes. It would be officially announced later, but it was safer for him to remain inside the association. It's logical to expect slander and insults from others given his situation, they added. They proceeded with the condition of gathering achievements through gate subjugations. Confirming that he was an F-ranker, Kamu recalled that the next rank evaluation was still far away. Watching the chairman approach, the other hunters started to worry. After listening to the information about demons, he got quite fired up. As such, he had decided to give the newcomer a special reevaluation himself. While June worried about the unexpected development, the others only chuckled, saying the old man's bad habit had unfortunately started coming out. Tsubasa, who had been consistently hostile, now laughed at him in amusement, while the oblivious young man wondered why they were acting that way. Kamu ended the meeting and picked him up, saying they were headed to the training hall. Soon enough, June found himself in an arena facing the head of the association himself. Since it was a special case, he was told to fight and show his true strength. The idea itself seemed ridiculous, but the chairman promised to hold back and use about 1/10 or 2 of his power. Standing tall, his divine spirit Yulan appeared with a brilliant light. Seeing the sword, June wondered if it was his power, and noted that the spirit was on the same level as Yugo's. The two faced each other like light and dark, while the other hunters watched on intently. They wondered just how strong the demon pact holder was. As a final condition, the young man was told to land at least a single hit, unless he wanted to be forcibly removed from the Hunter Association. Just like that, the match began. While June struggled to accept the situation, even asking that he stop joking, the chairman closed the gap in an instant. "I don't tell jokes in such places," he said. Unable to even react to his speed, June took a direct hit and was sent crashing into the wall. Barely able to get his sword up, he was stunned by the unrealistically heavy strike. Recalling how he had promised to deliver results, Kamu asked if his words were mere lies to keep himself alive. Barely able to keep himself up, June continued the battle. His hands felt numb, and he couldn't believe that the chairman was holding himself back. Kamu overflowed with power and told him to fight without hesitation. With no other choice, he did as told and charged in with determination. For now, he started by binding his opponent with chains, revealing the ability for the first time. The young man jumped in believing his sword would be unstoppable, at least in this situation. As he brought the blade down, the gap between them became clear as the chairman caught it between his fingers. "Shallow attacks," he said, merely tossing him to the ground, knocking the wind out of him. At this rate, he wouldn't be able to land a single hit. Determined to prove himself, June backed away for now, trying to regain his footing. Meanwhile, Kamu broke the chains, asking if he had anything more to offer. While all that was happening, a bottle of alcohol opened up. Yugo downed the bottle, enjoying the match with the others who shared mixed feelings over the show. Without moving an inch, June thought hard, wondering how he could land a single hit. Tired of how long he was taking, the chairman decided to go on the offensive. His movements were intense, and the old man closed the gap in an instant. Summoning his brilliant sword once more, he swung, and the target was well aware that blocking the attack was not an option. Left with nothing else to do, he jumped away just in time. The cut just barely missed, cutting the fabric on his chest. That said, the old man had swung as wide as possible to make his attack dodgeable by the right person. Kamu praised the hunter's reaction and told him to maintain the pace. He continued to swing, not giving the opponent a chance to counter. His attacks were heavy and consecutive, but if all he did was keep dodging, he'd end up losing the match anyway. Knowing this was true, June tried to gain some distance first and turned his shadow weapon into a gun. While the chairman was surprised by the development he shot, the audience was amused, finding the fight increasingly enjoyable. The shooter wondered if he had landed a hit, but his eyes widened in surprise. A huge shield covered his opponent's body, and Kamu praised him for forcing the equipment out. He was still wondering when and where the shield had been pulled out. However, this only prompted the chairman to go further and summon a long lance next. His divine spirit skill was armory, which allowed him to change weapons as he wished. Having multiple weapons at his disposal was already problematic, but it was obvious that none of them were normal. His spirit Yulan was the god of weapons, and allowed him to use heroic equipment as much as he wanted. In other words, the chairman was the strongest close-range fighter in the association. With this reveal, they proceeded to the second round. Since using a gun against a spearman was risky, he switched back to his sword. As they might have noticed, the armory skill was similar to his shadow materialization abilities. Intrigued, the chairman charged in, curious as to how he was going to counter his armory. June struggled against the series of thrusts as the power was combined with the lance's long reach. Just then his eyes noticed something. Something shimmered, and he reacted instinctively, deflecting the axes thrown his way. Able to use his skill this way as well, Kamu followed up and smashed a huge hammer on the ground. Seeing the enormous weapon, he noticed the shape starting to dissipate. June backed away and jumped high to evade the swing of a sharp axe. While he was in the air, the weapon changed again and now turned into a bow and arrow. Not having the chance to breathe, he did his best to stay alive. Meanwhile, Yugo realized what was happening and praised the chairman for being a great instructor. The hunter sliced the arrow in half. Now the two faced each other once more. Speaking to Reno, he said he had also realized something by watching the chairman fight. Armory gave the advantage regardless of the opponent, which was why he wanted June to watch. Kamu charged in again, wondering what he was going to do now. Since he was using a sword, the young hunter had learned from him and summoned a spear, which was the natural counter for a swordsman. However, that wouldn't be enough. Right as they were about to clash, June changed his weapon once more, allowing him to step in without being hindered. In that moment, he summoned a much shorter dagger and used the minimum distance needed to swipe at his opponent's chest. Everyone was shocked by the maneuver, which had allowed him to tear the chairman's shirt even just a tiny bit. He had successfully and meticulously used the time lag from the opponent's equipment change. Panting in exhaustion, June waited for their decision. Using a spear in close proximity was difficult, so he had aimed for the gap and timed the perfect blow. Kamu praised the boy's wits and ended the examination. The young hunter nearly fell to his knees, exhausted by the demanding trial. The entire time he was being guided, asked how he would overcome certain situations. In addition to his nimble movement, he used his head well enough on the battlefield. Told to improve on himself more, the reevaluation was concluded, and he was given a B rank for now. It was a huge jump, but the decision was made also considering his future. Filled with newfound determination, June vowed to grow stronger. Just then, Yugo appeared from behind, saying it was a thorough evaluation, but adding that he still had a long way to go, at least in terms of skill. Knowing this was true, and that he was still far from where they were, June called to the S-ranker, burning with passion to be stronger. He asked for mentorship, bowing and saying he was looking for guidance. Yugo smiled as things were going as expected so far. Since he was already thinking about training the young hunter, he accepted the request and looked forward to his growth. Seated with their respective divine spirits, Yugo suggested doing the same training he and Nova had done years ago. Hunters borrowed their spirit's power, and by understanding that connection, things would be more efficient. Of course, this logic applied to them as well. As long as their contract was bound by the sacred stone, there would be no issues. Moreover, converting divine power into mana was still possible in theory. This would be perfect for Reno since she had a massive mana pool. The only problem was he couldn't accept and steadily control it right now. Once he passed this training, he'd be able to tap into that power and grow much stronger. Excited by the thought, June looked forward to his guidance. The main step to this exercise was to hold each other's hand while conquering a dungeon. Hearing the odd method, the two fell silent. The next day, they made their way to an F-rank dungeon. Hand in hand, they stepped forward, ready to complete the mission. While he was conscious about the touch, Reno said there was nothing to be embarrassed about. They were instructed to stay silent during fights and not let go no matter what. To complete the training, they had to do this while conquering dungeons from F to C rank. As he wondered if this would really work, the fallen angel pointed forward. Before them was a group of monsters. Since he couldn't let his guard down, he decided to observe the enemies first. Unfortunately, he found his face on the ground as he was pulled by Reno, who wanted to finish the fight as soon as possible. His face argued that it was better to start a match with careful observation. Unable to agree, they were barely able to dodge as the monsters charged in. One came from above and they pulled on each other's arms once more. She almost fell from the sudden movement, and while it was easy to dodge attacks, the partners were hindering themselves as they were totally out of sync. To get over this hurdle for now, he summoned his shadow gun and blasted the enemies away. With the battle settled, June insisted that she was too aggressive, while Reno argued that he couldn't be too passive. Although they made valid points, their fighting styles were complete opposites. The next group of enemies surrounded them since they hadn't defeated the previous one fast enough. He opened his mouth to retort once more, but now was not the time for arguments, so they got right into action. 2 weeks later, they reached the C-rank dungeon's boss room. They had gotten used to fighting hand in hand, but still hadn't resolved their differing styles. That said, a boss at this level would be difficult, so they decided to do their best. The important thing was not matching movements, but understanding each other. Agreeing on this, they stepped into the room. There, a gigantic legacy golem roared, sending tremors throughout the dungeon. Analyzing the enemy fast, Reno realized that it was the perfect target, and flew in right away, dragging her partner along. Since it couldn't be helped, June went on the offensive as well. With his shadow hammer, he struck the boss's body with all his might. However, the thick stone was too tough to get through. As expected, he should have been more careful. Reno didn't share the sentiment and flew in again. As they pulled on each other in discord, the golem countered with an attack of its own. The two were sent flying away. They couldn't move properly, completely out of sync. Just then, he saw his partner's determined face and realized that she must have some sort of goal. June couldn't understand what she was aiming for, but with a firm squeeze of his hand, her message came through. Regardless of what it might be, she was asking him to trust her. With a newfound understanding of her, he ascertained that she had something in mind. To be in sync and get stronger, he let go of his hesitation and surrendered to her pull. The enemy charged in, and they dodged as usual, but now the two moved much more gracefully. With a counterattack, he targeted the golem's chest, sending it back and breaking it open. Inside, he saw a glowing orb, which was likely its weak point. Thanks to Reno's lead, they were able to uncover it together. She flew in again, wanting to end it once and for all, but found herself being pulled back like before. Turning around in confusion, she saw her partner's face. Now it was his turn to ask that she place her faith in him. Touched by his determined eyes, she understood his intentions. They pulled back just in time to dodge the boss's long-range attacks. At times like this, he believed it was best to step away and reassess their situation. Now she understood that his method was one that limited the risks they were taking. The enemy stood tall, towering over them, but the two were now much more confident in each other. With an understanding nod, they dodged the next strike perfectly, allowing June to counter and send the golem staggering back. They didn't give it time to recover, following through with a barrage of swings and strikes. If he were alone, he could never conquer such a dungeon, and if she didn't have him by her side, she would have been defeated long ago. Now they acknowledged each other's sentiments. Summoning his shadow weapon, June swung down the entire enemy's length, cutting and breaking the crystal ball in its chest. With this, the boss fell, and they successfully completed their mission. He jumped around in joy and raised his hand to ask Reno for a high five. While it was ignored due to confusion, he brushed it off, expecting as much from the angel. Later at night, someone approached Yugo in a bar. He was downing drinks as usual when the store's bell rang upon entry. Curious, he asked how they had found out about the place. June appeared, saying the chairman had told him that he frequented the bar for drinks. He turned to face the young hunter, who said his guidance had helped a ton. Compared to before, he now had much better control of his mana and seemed like a different person. With his training completed, he had grown way beyond Yugo's expectations. Brightening up from the praise, he sat beside his mentor. Tomorrow, June had to conquer a B-ranked dungeon, and it seemed several hunters had been called on. Handing his student a drink, he said it would be a perfect place to show his skill and encouraged him to show the results of his training. With this, they gave a toast, looking forward to what the next day would bring. Several hours ago, at the meeting room of the association, Miss Hayashi reported that they had detected a massive gate, which was relatively similar to a normal dungeon, saying they needed to summon more hunters than usual. Renji asked for the chairman's opinion. He told them to start selecting hunters and confirm the rank of the dungeon. Hearing that it was a B ranker, he smiled, getting an idea. To her surprise, he personally recommended a hunter certain he'd achieve a great feat. While Renji already knew what to expect, Kamu opened June's hunter file. The next day, on the outskirts of the Kanto prefecture, several hunters gathered around a huge gate. It was the first time June had seen so many people just for one dungeon. Just then, one of the men shouted at him, recognizing him as the person who had formed a contract with a demon. They pushed on, saying it was not only a betrayal to them, but to all those who had lost families. As long as they believed in his contract, the reaction was understandable and it was better to de-escalate. Continuing to call him trash, they doubted that they even needed him to enter the dungeon with them. Reno asked if it was okay to let this go, but in the end, they were just doing the mission. However, things turned from bad to worse as the hunters decided to kill him right there. One shot an arrow of pure electricity. June took his sword out to deflect, but a wall of water suddenly appeared, blocking the attack from reaching him. To his confusion, someone stopped the altercation, saying they wanted no more fights between hunters. They argued with Sarah, an A-rank hunter, insisting that he was a traitor. She ignored them instead, apologizing to June as the raid's organizer. Counting on her, he took her hand in gratitude. Ordering everyone to move past it, the leader started delegating roles. She was a famous influencer, but despite her bubbly attitude, she had climbed the ranks of the association. Behind him, another member of the raid watched, oddly staying back after confirming his identity. Minutes later, they were already inside the dungeon and were subject to the environment's swinging heat. They stopped for a moment, reaching the edge of a deep cliff. They took a closer look and saw the bottom filled with raging and hungry demons. Sarah convinced herself, saying she could do it and that her judgment was correct. Calling for earth or water users, she planned to build a bridge and quickly cross over. She saw June nearby and asked him to observe the enemies and make sure they didn't make any weird movements. He rushed to the edge, knowing it would be bad if they were ambushed. Little did he know that dark shadows covered his allies' faces. With a snap of her fingers, Sarah signaled the others, who immediately proceeded to capture the young man. Held tight in their arms, he demanded an explanation. Following everyone's opinion, she said they had decided to kill him and make it look like an accident. As expected, being with a human who had made a pact with a demon was dangerous. Moreover, every single person there felt nothing but hate for demons. With this, they mercilessly threw June over the cliff. They laughed as they watched him fall, certain that there was no surviving the enemies below. Looking with cold eyes, Sarah apologized, saying it was the best choice she could make. Dropping fast, he remembered the time he had met Reno as he was betrayed in the exact same way. Reacting to the situation, the fallen angel appeared, telling him to leave the fall to her. With this, he was reminded that it was not the same, as he wasn't alone anymore. Shadow chains burst out of his hands, stopping his descent and tethering him to the walls of the cliff. That said, he still couldn't climb up in that state. The monsters below were B-rankers, and he'd be killed if he slightly dropped his guard. Fortunately, he and Reno were no longer the same, and should be able to overcome the challenge. Up top, the odd hunter from before hid, saying he had to move quickly. June demolished the enemies below, switching between weapons and working in complete sync with his partner. The number of demons dropped significantly, and he had more than enough energy as his mana output and stamina were much more controlled. Reacting fast to ambushes, he smiled in satisfaction, no longer having any difficulty against enemies of that level. While he continued to fend them off, the boy from before watched from the edge, mesmerized by his swift movements. Just then, the ground under him crumbled, and he found himself falling over the cliff. Tumbling down, he somehow managed to break the drop, but still came crashing to the ground. He was alive and in pain, but it might not be for much longer as demons surrounded him quickly. They attacked without hesitation, and he screamed while running away. However, he was soon cornered and could do nothing but beg for mercy. Just then, June came to his rescue, slicing the demons in half. They finally saw each other's face, and he wondered who the young hunter was. Safe from the demons, the hunter thanked June for coming to his rescue. He introduced himself as Yuki, and June recognized the name of the youngest person who had become a hunter. He mistakenly said that he didn't expect them to be a girl, but quickly got corrected. Due to his looks, even Reno was unable to believe it. Fortunately, her partner corrected her, saying it sometimes happened. Moving on, June recalled that he had called his name and wondered how he knew him. The young one had known before he even made a contract. Back then, he had watched him train relentlessly no matter what the situation. He was embarrassed to hear that someone had actually looked up to him all this time. Worrying after he was thrown over the cliff, he had accidentally fallen while watching. June asked him to join them, saying it must be fate somehow. The young one gladly accepted his hand and they banded together. A while later, the hunter chained a bunch of demons up and cut the last batch of enemies down. Yuki couldn't help but gasp in awe, mesmerized by their movements. Meanwhile, the shadow hunter was satisfied and started to be more confident in his ability. The boy fawned over how he had fought alone and asked what he had to do to be as strong. Reno revealed that they had conquered dungeons while holding hands. Trying to clarify the easily misconstrued statement, he explained that it was for their compatibility. He then wondered what divine spirit the newcomer had. Suddenly conscious, Yuki said its name was Kafka, an explosion spirit. It was completely different from their expectations given his meek image. He had wanted to help since earlier, but he was afraid of making a mistake and dragging them down. Sometime before, he had used his abilities on a mission, but had nearly killed his comrades by accident. Even small movements had made them worry, and they had cast him away in anger. He shuddered at the memory, and June apologized for making him remember the pain. Kafka lingered around its partner, seemingly comforting him. Trauma caused by using one's skill was not one easy to overcome. The older hunter comforted him, saying he must have been doing his best all this time. In the end, he promised that his efforts wouldn't betray him. Moreover, just wanting to help his comrades was enough of a sentiment for him. Never having heard such words before, his respect for his idol only grew. With newfound determination, he wiped his tears away and thanked June. Now he vowed to pay him back and be his strength somehow. Relieved to have another person by his side, they proceeded forward. 10 hours after entering the dungeon, the hunters reached the top of the mountain, where they were locked in an intense battle with the boss. Working together, they finished the preparations and rushed to hide behind Sarah. It charged at her, and with her high-ranking spirit, she called upon her power. Jets of water shot from above, impaling the powerful enemy and ending its life altogether. Just like that, the dungeon was successfully conquered and everyone cheered her on. With the subjugation complete, she turned to check if anyone was injured. Suddenly, dark magic appeared from above. The violent mana shook them to the core before settling on a spot nearby. From the black portal, a sinister presence stepped out. A Magian had entered the dungeon, complaining about the mana needed to get there. Realizing what it was, the hunters were on high alert. Despite its status, the demon looked fairly sloppy, prompting the others to underestimate it. Feeling overconfident, they charged in, wanting to make an opening for their leader. They were too hung up on victory and ignored her calls to stop. In that instant, they were sent flying away, killed in the blink of an eye. The gravity of the situation set in. Jaga complained, saying they were too weak for people who had just defeated the boss. He pointed at Sarah, saying she must be the leader, and challenged her to a fight. Knowing the danger, she commanded everyone to leave at once. They did as told, fearing for their lives. Meanwhile, the Majin introduced himself and asked her to do the same, but the hunter refused, saying there was no need to answer to a demon. With her attack flying at him, he decided to make her talk instead, making quick work of her water jets. While she was surprised, the hunter was suddenly kneed in the gut. It was a harsh lesson on how fast he was, and she was sent crashing into a wall. Now Jaga stood over her and gave her another chance to introduce herself. Unfortunately, her pride and spite got the better of her, and she replied insultingly. Since he couldn't get a proper answer, he gathered dark mana into his palm and told her to die instead. The red light shone on her face, and as he was about to shoot familiar dark chains, pulled his arm away, saving her just in time. June had appeared accompanied by Reno and got ready to face him.